My dear students and viewers, Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to my online class. I am Urshida Imam, Assistant Professor, Department of English, Government Shahid Sohrawardi College, Dhaka. My dear students of Honours 3rd Year, Department of English, how are you? Hope you are fine and enjoying your online classes. In the continuation of our previous class, today we will start reading the text preface to the lyrical ballads. Hope you are ready to do the class with your textbook. My dear students, get ready with your textbook and start reading the text. At first, read para 1 and 2 of the text by yourself. Okay, that is the heading of our text, preface to the lyrical ballads 1802. In para 1, at the very beginning line of para 1, that is the first volume, you see the word the first volume. Here the first volume refers to the first edition of the lyrical ballads came out in 1798. My dear students, in para 1 and para 2, Wordsworth was declaring that the first edition of the lyrical ballads was an experiment, and Wordsworth was happy to note that it proved to be popular beyond expectations. The first edition was an experiment to ascertain the extent to which the real language of men in a state of vivid sensation could impart the pleasure expected from poetry. The edition gave Wordsworth proof that public reaction was quite favorable to the experiment. He knew, however, that the reaction of the readers would be of the extreme kind. They would either find the poems uncommonly pleasing or form an uncommon dislike for them. There would not be a moderate or a middle way approach. But he found that the first edition was sold very quickly and the poems enjoyed great popularity. Apparently, Wordsworth concludes, he was able to satisfy the desire of the readers. So, the very beginning of the preface to the lyrical ballads establishes the fact that Wordsworth was writing a different kind of poetry, different from the kind of poetry written by the neoclassical school and which was popular at the time. And it's the sum and substance of para 1 and 2 of the text, preface to the lyrical ballads 1802. Now go to para 3 of the text. In para 3, we see that Wordsworth's friends had wanted him to write a preface to the poems. He could offer a defense of the theory behind the writing of his poetry. The poems were of a different kind and he could have explained his aims and objectives in the preface. Wordsworth, however, was unwilling to write a preface for two reasons. Number 1, he might be suspected of trying to offer arguments as to why the public should like the poems. And number 2, the space offered by a normal preface was too short for an adequate defense of a theory of a new kind of poetry. But in para 4 of the text, we see that Wordsworth was mentioning that, but his poems are so materially different from the work popular at the time that a preface became necessary, if he was not to startle the readers. The public was accustomed to the inane phraseology of Pope and other modern writers. They would find something new in Wordsworth's poems, and this difference required explanation. His preface was in the nature of an introduction. Hence, he felt that an introduction was called for. His preface should be taken as an introduction rather than as a detailed elaboration of any theory. He wrote it with the express purpose of familiarizing the readers with the reasons behind his writing the poems, which were so different from the popular trend. Actually, a writer and a reader have an unwritten understanding between them. So, the reader expects certain literary conventions to end previous agreements it was necessary for a writer to lay down new terms and conditions of the new contract which he wanted to enter into with his reader. And Wordsworth says that his poems would not satisfy the readers who were used to the literary works of Pope and his school. His poems are of a different kind. He had to write the preface to explain his reasons for the difference between his poems and those of the earlier age. The preface would warn the readers not to expect the usual features connected with poetry of that time. My dear students, and para 5, go to para 5, and it's very important. Okay, here in para 5 we see that Wordsworth is mentioning that his chief aim in writing the poems has been to choose incidents and situations of common life and to relate them in a selection of the language really used by men. At the same time, there would be a coloring of imagination thrown over ordinary events so that they would be presented to the mind in an unusual aspect. He had chosen humble and rustic life for a number of reasons. Okay, there are advantages in this according to Wordsworth. That is, his reasons for the choice of rustic life are as follows. Okay, mark it please. Number 1, the rustic language is spoken by men in whose hearts the essential passions find a better soil to attain maturity in. Okay, number 2, the passions of these men are incorporated with the beautiful and permanent forms of nature, and the best part of their language is derived from such communication with nature. It is bound to be noble and simply grand. And number 3, the expressions of the rustic folk are direct, clear, simple, and impassioned. They speak in an unrestrained manner as they are uninhibited by social vanity. Their language is impassioned and expresses emotional excitement in a better manner. Their language comes from the depth of their hearts. It is the natural language of the passions. And number 4, through such a language, the basic truths about human nature can be more easily reached, understood, and communicated. So, my dear students, in the rustic life, the essential passions, the elementary feelings resulting from a communion with nature are simple, unsophisticated, and easy to understand. And so, Wordsworth chose these languages for his poetry. And Wordsworth has also used the language of these rustic and humble people after having purified it of its coarseness and other defects. The rustic people live in constant communication with the best objects of nature, from which is derived the best part of language. So, my dear students, the simple language in which they convey their feelings is more permanent and philosophical than the artificial diction used by the poets of the time. Now go to para 6 and 7. Okay, in para 6 we see that Wordsworth's poems differ from those of his contemporaries because his poems have a worthy purpose, that of enlightening the readers and purifying their affections. And poetry is a spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings. Mark it, these lines please. These lines are very important for explanation. Okay, and here we see that, but the poet has more than usual organic sensibility. What is organic sensibility, my dear students? Yes, organic sensibility means the capacity to receive impressions through his senses. So, here we see that the poet has more than usual organic sensibility, and he has also thought long and deeply. A habit is formed with him in which some purpose becomes the prominent aim of a composition. The true poet always discovers what is really important and worthwhile. So, in para 6, we see that Wordsworth is strongly against triviality and meanness in poetry, which some of his contemporary poets had introduced into poetry. The triviality had to do with both language and thought. But Wordsworth's own poems were different in that each of them had a worth purpose, that of enlightening the readers and purifying their affections. Wordsworth hastens to inform us, however, that the purpose was not formally conceived. It just evolved due to habits of meditation. Habitual contemplation had prompted and regulated his feelings so that they always carried along with them a purpose. A poet without such an opinion was no true poet. Poetry is the spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings, but mere overflow of powerful feelings is not enough. For the poet has to have an organic sensibility and be a person who has thought long and deep. Thus, mere feeling is not enough. The poet has to think deeply about his subject. The poet's feelings are modified by his thought so that he is able to connect one thought with another. He would then reach really important and worthwhile truths. Gradually, a habit is formed in which the poet writes of such subjects and expresses such sentiments which are noble. Such poems enlighten the reader's understanding and purify their affections. That's all about para 6. Okay. Now go to para 7 of the text. You see, para 7 is very short, and here Wordsworth gives more importance to feeling than to situation. Here you see that Wordsworth gives more importance to feeling than to situation. It is the feeling which gives importance to the situation. Here we see the departure from the neoclassical norms. Okay, the poet should have great organic sensibility, the capacity to receive impressions through his senses. But it must also be noticed that Wordsworth does not minimize the role of thought. Okay, so you see, Wordsworth considered feeling and emotion to be of a greater importance than situation and incident. That is, feeling developed in a poem gives importance to the action and situation, and not the action and situation to the feeling. For him, it is the feeling that matters. Here he discards Aristotelian theory. My dear students, so today we have discussed para 1 to para 7 of the text preface to the Lyrical Ballads 1802, and from our today's discussion, para 5 and para 6, okay, mark it, those two paras are very important for explanation. You have to read more and more para 5 and 6, okay. And from our today's discussion, now I want to give you a homework. Please write down the homework, please. Question, okay, it will be an maybe as a short question or broad question, okay. Prepare it on both ways. Write down the question, please. Why did Wordsworth favor the language of humble and rustic life for poetry? Examine his arguments. Okay, I am repeating the question. Why did Wordsworth favor the language of humble and rustic life for poetry? Examine his arguments. Okay, my dear students, no more today. In our next class, we will read another paras of from this text. Okay, hope all of you will do your homework. Okay, and see you again in our next class, inshallah. Till then, goodbye. Allah Hafiz.